The day before the new drug launch, Sarah was dragged into an alley by over a dozen men. When she was rescued, her intestines had prolapsed, and her limbs were grotesquely twisted. Robert pulled every string he had, vowing to send the men who hurt her to prison. His fiancée, Jessica, contacted the top medical team from across the country, who flew in overnight to treat her. But at the ER door, Sarah heard her best friend's hesitant voice. "Honey, wasn't it too much for us to hire those men for the assault and humiliation of Sarah just so Tiffany could get ahead with her new drug launch?" Robert gave Sarah a complicated look and gritted his teeth. "Sarah is too selfish. She's already the eldest Miss Ching, yet she's still not satisfied and constantly bullies Tiffany. Tiffany has always been fragile and sensitive because of her status as an adopted daughter. She can only rely on me, and I won't let anyone stand in her way. As for Sarah, she has the title of my biological sister. Even if she's tainted, no one will look down on her. Once Tiffany wins this major medical award, I'll make it up to Sarah properly later. But Robert, you've destroyed my body. Do I even have a future?" Tears fell silently. This home, full of lies and favoritism, Sarah didn't want it anymore. The doctor confirmed again. "Robert, are you really not doing the surgery? If Miss Chang's condition is delayed any further, she won't just be crippled, she could also be paralyzed and require a catheter bag for the rest of her life." Robert didn't hesitate. "No." His best friend hesitated, trying to persuade him. "Honey, Sarah's body is already this bad. She won't be able to go to the new drug launch tomorrow. She's your biological sister. Do you really want to see her become crippled? Let her be crippled. Only then will she stop trying to steal Tiffany's spotlight. I'll take care of her for the rest of my life." He carefully used a towel to wipe the sweat from Sarah's face, his voice full of indulgence and doting. "I promised Tiffany I'd make sure she wins this award in style. Only if Sarah is completely crippled can Tiffany feel at ease." His best friend sighed and expertly instructed the doctors, "Quick, give Sarah painkillers. Use the best ones in your hospital. Don't let her feel any pain." Where no one noticed, Sarah couldn't stop trembling. Tears of despair streamed out. It turned out Sarah's ordeal wasn't an accident at all. It was her most trusted brother, Robert, acting intentionally, just to get rid of her as a stumbling block for Tiffany Ching. Even her best friend, whom Sarah had treated with sincerity, was an accomplice. Shattering pain swept through her entire body. Her best friend noticed Sarah's pillow was soaked. Tears of distress fell on Sarah's hand. "Sarah, it's Jessica. Did the pain wake you up? Don't be afraid, I'm here." She excitedly reprimanded the doctors. "What kind of painkillers did you give her? Be gentle, don't touch her wounds. Can't you see she's in so much pain?" Robert was even more furious and anxious. The big man, over 6 feet tall, covered his face, tears streaming down, wishing he could bear the pain for Sarah. He cursed through clenched teeth. "How dare they hurt my sister like this? Just going to prison is too easy for these bastards. I should chop them into pieces and throw them in the sea to feed the fish." After saying that, he looked at Sarah, his eyes full of guilt. "Sarah, Robert has already invited the best experts from across the country to treat you. There was an accident on the road, though, so they won't be here until tomorrow at the earliest. Don't worry, even if it costs me my life, Robert will cure you and let you continue researching new drugs." Sarah numbly watched his superb acting and asked weakly, "Robert, will I really get better?" "Yes, you will. Definitely," Robert said loudly, but his eyes avoided Sarah's, full of guilt. He knew very well that the knife he had personally plunged into Sarah wouldn't leave her any room to breathe. To clear the path for Tiffany Ching, this brother, who had sworn at their parents' grave to cherish Sarah her whole life, personally sent her to her doom. And her best friend, who was like a sister to Sarah, ultimately chose to betray her for that manipulative adopted daughter. In that moment, Sarah couldn't even tell who was Robert's biological sister by blood, and who was Jessica's best friend for 12 inseparable years. She had even brought about their marriage herself. But they chose to slowly torture Sarah with lies and deceit. Her heart turned to stone, and Sarah spoke no more. A doctor came over with antiseptic, looking at Sarah's horrifying lower body and twisted limbs with a pained expression. "Miss Chung, the experts haven't arrived yet. We can only disinfect you first. Bear with it." Even the best painkillers couldn't cover the intense pain. Sarah bit her jaw until blood filled her mouth. But the physical pain was less than 1/10,000th of the pain in her heart. Jessica watched this scene, clamping a hand over her mouth, her eyes quickly turning red. Robert clenched his fists and walked out, his back trembling slightly. Their concern was so convincing, yet Sarah couldn't feel a trace of warmth anymore. When she woke up again, it was the next day. Sarah heard Robert and his best friend talking outside the hospital room. "Honey, Sarah's condition is already so severe. Are we still having reporters come to the hospital today to expose her promiscuity?" Robert hesitated for a moment, then spoke with determination. "Yes. Sarah is already tainted anyway, a little more dirt won't matter. Those medical judges are most sensitive to character issues, and this is also a good opportunity to teach her a lesson. I'm doing it for her own good." After that, he carefully instructed, "Make sure those experts are ready. They should treat Sarah as soon as the reporters leave." His best friend nodded repeatedly. Sarah lay on the bed blankly, staring emptily at the ceiling. Burning tears streamed from her eyes. Robert knew perfectly well that Sarah had been switched at birth, suffered immensely, and put in countless times more effort and hardship than ordinary people to become a drug researcher. With just one careless sentence, he destroyed half a lifetime of her hard work. If she had known that returning to her closest family would be worse than death, Sarah would have rather been beaten to death by her adopted mother. An hour later, a group of reporters, seemingly out of nowhere, suddenly burst through the door. They were carrying camera equipment, men and women, swarming in like blood-sucking bats when they saw Sarah. Sarah's face turned pale with fright, and she couldn't move. "Miss Ching, we heard you ended up in the hospital from promiscuity with multiple partners. Would you say this is you reaping what you sow? Can you tell us how you feel right now? Miss Ching, given your promiscuity, did you sleep your way to becoming a drug researcher? Miss Ching, can you not even move now? Have you become completely crippled? Will you be incontinent?" As they spoke, a reporter asking questions suddenly reached out and pulled back the thin blanket covering Sarah. Her wounds were severe, and Sarah couldn't wear any clothes. Immense shame enveloped her entire body. Sarah's breathing tightened, and she struggled to catch her breath in agony. "Oh my God, that's disgusting, so many wounds. TSK, her limbs are deformed. Quick, take pictures, it's all material." The waves of disgust and contempt, one after another, felt like sharp knives plunging directly into her chest. Sarah could no longer control her tears, they rolled down in large drops. "Miss Ching, are you afraid to answer our questions because we hit the nail on the head? Were you born a slut?" Seeing Sarah's panic and helplessness, a camera was immediately shoved into her face, starting a live broadcast. Renowned pharmaceutic all researcher Ching Ran leads a dissolute private life, a poster child for sluts. "We urge the public to cherish their bodies and absolutely not end up crippled from promiscuity like Sarah." Sarah was like a clown stripped naked, unable to even curl up in humiliation. She let the camera flashes work nonstop, capturing her most pathetic and mortifying state. "What are you doing? Who let you in?" Robert burst in, roaring for them to get out. His best friend took off her jacket, wrapped it tightly around Sarah, and cried tears of distress. "Where are the bodyguards? Are they all dead? How could they let reporters in? They coordinated so well. So well it made Sarah sick." Sarah couldn't stop trembling all over. Robert knelt in front of Sarah, holding her cold hand, his eyes full of guilt. "Sarah, I'm sorry. It's Robert's fault for not protecting you, letting these reporters slip through. Don't be afraid, Robert will block the news and absolutely won't let them spread rumors. Robert swears he will never let you suffer even a little bit of injustice again." How ridiculous. The brother who kept saying he wouldn't let Sarah suffer injustice was the one who made her endure the greatest injustice of her life. He knew better than anyone that the reporters had already captured what they wanted. Sarah would be nailed to the slut-shaming pillar of shame, her reputation ruined, and she would live like a social outcast from now on, just as he wished, forever trampled in the mud. Because of Tiffany Ching, the two closest family members, Sarah had completely destroyed her. The shock was too much, and her broken body couldn't bear it. Sarah passed out. Before consciousness faded into darkness, Sarah heard Robert's panicked roars. The experts who had been waiting at the door swarmed in. "It's been delayed too long. Her intestines are gangrenous, all of this needs to be removed. Even if her limbs are healed, she might not be able to hold things and will be confined to a wheelchair. The situation is very serious, the optimal time for treatment has passed. The surgery only has a 50% success rate." Robert couldn't believe it. "How can this be? You must heal my sister, no matter the cost." From beginning to end, he hadn't let go of Sarah's hand, choking back sobs of distress. "Sarah, you absolutely can't die. Robert can't lose you." Jessica cried heartbrokenly. "Sarah, we promised we'd be each other's bridesmaids and be happy together. You can't leave me." Sarah numbly closed her eyes. Her heart turned to stone. When Sarah opened her eyes again, she was back in the hospital room. Except for her left hand, which was slightly less injured, her entire body was wrapped in bandages. Jessica was sitting by Sarah's bed. Seeing her wake up, she cried tears of joy. "Sarah, you're finally awake. Does anything still hurt? Are you hungry? Do you want some water?" Beneath the familiar concern lay a carefully hidden guilt. Sarah suddenly felt like laughing. They were the ones who had turned Sarah into this inhuman state, yet now that they had gotten what they wanted, who were they putting on this show of fake guilt for? Sarah pulled at the corner of her chapped lips. "Get some sleep. Look at the dark circles under your eyes." Seeing Sarah's mood was calm, Jessica felt relieved and quickly fell asleep on the visitor cot beside her. When she was asleep, Sarah picked up the phone Jessica had placed on the nightstand. As soon as she unlocked it, the phone wallpaper displayed a group photo of the three of them. Tiffany Ching stood between the two of them, smiling radiantly, linking arms with each. Sarah opened the photo gallery. Nearly 10,000 photos, densely packed with pictures of the three of them on trips and in their daily lives. In a video, Jessica held a 3-tier cake she had made herself and dotingly put frosting on Tiffany Chang's nose. Robert held a princess tiara, repeatedly saying he wanted his only sister to be the happiest little princess in the world. And the countless moments from their 12 years together, studying, fangirling, running under the setting sun, crying and laughing together, promising to live in the same retirement home when they were old, photos that Jessica had sworn to treasure forever, were now all, without a single one missing, in the recycle bin. Tears blurred Sarah's vision, and her heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. She didn't understand how sisters who were so close could change like that, just like that. Accidentally, Sarah opened their private 3-person group chat and found a kidney transplant agreement. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. Because the recipient listed was Jessica, but the donor had become Tiffany Ching. Sarah bit her lip hard, struck as if by lightning. Her trembling hand lightly pressed against the scar on her waist. Although many years had passed, the pain seemed to flare up again, like a knife twisting inside. Suddenly remembering something, Sarah quickly scrolled up through the messages, finally stopping at a sentence from Robert. "During the mansion fire back then, Tiffany risked her life to carry me out while I was unconscious. This life, Tiffany, is my life. I would risk my life to fulfill all your wishes." Tiffany Ching was his life. Then what about Sarah? What about her back, scorched black by the fire, twisted and deformed to this day, her 2 ribs broken by a falling beam? Mechanically, Sarah put down the phone and lay on the bed, laughing with tears streaming down her face. After a long while, Sarah calmly wiped away her tears and sent a message to a long-unused number in her contact list. "Professor, can I still join the classified new drug research project overseas?" The reply was instantaneous. "Of course. I've always admired your ability and character. I know the information online is slander, don't let it bother you. However, this project is classified, the duration is uncertain, and your identity must be kept confidential. You'll need to communicate this with your family." "No need to communicate. Please help me cancel my official identity." After 2 seconds of silence, the other end seemed to understand something and just replied with one word, "Okay." "Cancel official identity?" Robert pushed the door open and came in. Hearing Sarah's words, a flicker of panic crossed his face. Sarah answered without changing her expression. "My ID card expired, I need to get a new one." He let out a breath of relief and carefully blew on the porridge he brought to cool it before feeding it to Sarah. "Your body isn't healed yet. Tell Robert whatever you need to do. We're family, don't be afraid to trouble Robert." "Family? Not for long." Jessica, who was nearby, also woke up and stammered, "Sarah, my wedding date with Robert is coming up soon. You haven't recovered yet, so the bridesmaid choice. Ask Tiffany to take my place. She's more suitable than me." Sarah knew what she was trying to say. In their chat history, they had already ordered a bridesmaid dress worth billions, personally custom-made by a renowned foreign designer according to Tiffany Chang's measurements, along with matching exorbitant jewelry. It was even more beautiful than the bride's wedding dress, yet Jessica, the bride, was willing to be upstaged. Sarah's attitude made both of them beam with joy. Robert looked relieved. "Sarah, you've really become much more sensible." Jessica squeezed Sarah's hand even tighter. "Sarah, even if you can't be my bridesmaid, you'll always be the best sister in my heart, my only best friend." Their past promises were fake, their vows were fake, only the deceit and lies were real. Sarah pulled her hand away and closed her eyes heavily. Sarah wouldn't want this home anymore. Including them, she didn't want them either. A week later, the wedding took place as scheduled at the beachfront hotel. Tiffany Ching, wearing an exquisite bridesmaid dress, was radiant and surrounded by guests. Seeing Sarah H arrive in a wheelchair, she immediately showered her with concern. "Sister, are you okay? I heard you were severely injured, even your intestines came out. I've been so worried." Sarah ignored her feigned concern, wanting to find a quiet place to rest. But she grabbed Sarah's wheelchair and began to sob. Her sharp nails dug into a wound on Sarah's arm, causing a jolt of pain that made Sarah's scalp tingle. Robert, who was mingling with guests, heard the commotion and came over. Sarah knew Tiffany Ching too well. The moment she made any move, Tiffany would immediately pretend to fall and accuse her. Sarah gritted her teeth and endured the pain, but then heard Tiffany sobbing pitifully. "Robert, sister must be upset that I didn't visit her, but you know, my new drug had such a great reception, I just couldn't find the time." She was showing off Sarah's hard-earned achievement and flaunting her success, successfully making all the guests shower her with praise. And Sarah, with her ruined reputation, couldn't escape those sharp, contemptuous stares, no matter how low she buried her head. "Sarah, if you're not feeling well, go rest." The person in front of Sarah, his familiar eyes full of disgust and impatience. He wasn't concerned about Sarah, he was worried that Sarah, despised by everyone, would embarrass him. Sarah nodded and silently turned her wheelchair, quickly leaving. But around the corner of the hallway, a man clamped a hand over Sarah's mouth and quickly dragged her into a private room next door. Inside the private room, the dozen men who had assaulted and humiliated Sarah reappeared. They hadn't been sent to prison as Robert had said. Instead, like devils, they cornered Sarah again. The nightmare returned. The color drained from Sarah's face. Tiffany Ching emerged from the crowd, dropping her facade. Her eyes were full of raw malice. "Ching Ran, wouldn't it have been better to die in the middle of nowhere? Why did you have to come back and compete with M.E.?" Sarah suppressed her fear. "I'll leave. From now on, you'll be the only Miss Ching." Tiffany Ching scoffed. "I prefer dead people." With that, she suddenly tore a slit in her dress, messed up her hair, pulled open the door, and cried out loudly. Robert rushed in with people. Stepping on Sarah's hand, he rushed to help Tiffany Ching. "Tiffany, what's wrong? Where are you hurt?" Jessica, dragging her wedding dress, followed close behind. Even though there wasn't a single scratch on Tiffany Ching, she cried out frantically, "Call 911. Where are the doctors? Is there a doctor here?" They surrounded Tiffany Ching, not one of them noticing that Sarah's hand had been broken again when it was stepped on, the bone piercing through the skin, her blood staining the white carpet. Tiffany Ching, her shoulders shaking, huddled in Robert's arms, crying, her eyes red-rimmed. "I just kindly came to comfort sister, but she said she was tainted and wanted to make me just as tainted. She brought these men and dragged me into the room, wanting to." "Robert, Jessica, please don't blame sister. She's just in a bad mood, she didn't mean it." Fury instantly surged in Robert's eyes. "Tiffany was kind enough to come and comfort you, are you insane? How dare you hurt her like this? If Tiffany gets psychological trauma, I'll make you pay with your life." Jessica's eyes were full of disappointment. "You've changed so much I barely recognize you. Tiffany is so kind, how could you do this? You're a born evil seed. This assault and humiliation is karma for always bullying Tiffany." They picked up Tiffany Ching and left without looking back. Before leaving, Robert said with a grim face, "Since you like the taste of assault and humiliation so much, I'll let you have your fill. Lock the door." Sarah's desperate cries of apology and pleas were cut off by the door being shut mercilessly. Jessica heard the miserable screams from inside and felt a flicker of unease. "Honey, is she really okay? What could happen? She brought those people here herself for a show, could they really hurt her?" Robert took Tiffany Ching directly to the hospital. After checking her thoroughly and confirming she was unharmed, he finally remembered Sarah. He sighed, then turned to Jessica and said, "Have someone let Sarah out. After all, she's my biological sister. Letting her learn a lesson is enough. When you go back, get her that set of ruby necklaces I just bought. That's her lucky charm." Just as Jessica took out her phone, the hotel manager's call came in first. "Mr. Ching, it's bad. Miss Ching, she jumped into the sea." Only a medical report was left at the scene. In the empty hospital corridor, those few clear words exploded like thunder. Robert froze in place, suddenly snatched Jessica's phone, and roared into it, "Who told you to curse my sister? Are you tired of living?" The voice on the phone was full of panic. "Mr. Ching, I wouldn't dare lie to you." Miss Ching was locked in the private room for less than 10 minutes, her voice was hoarse from screaming. A staff member couldn't bear it and opened the door, only to see her, ragged and disheveled, jump out the window. The private room directly overlooks the sea below, and it's all rocks. But don't worry, I contacted the rescue team immediately, and they're already conducting a full search. Miss Ching is blessed by fate, she'll surely not. He couldn't hear the rest of the words. The phone fell to the ground with a clatter, his arm hanging limply. Robert's mind buzzed, and his blood felt like it was flowing backward. How could she jump into the sea? Weren't those men brought by Sarah for a show? His sister depended on him the most, how could she bear to leave him? Jessica, who was nearby, frantically picked up the phone from the ground and asked the still-connected manager in a trembling voice, "Sarah asked you to lie to us, right? She's just angry that we locked her up, deliberately colluding with you to us, right?" The manager was too scared to breathe. Before he could explain, Tiffany Ching snatched Jessica's phone and hung up. Sister is truly scheming. Even locked up, she can collude with the manager to put on a show. Her hands and feet are broken, how could she climb to the window to jump into the sea? She doesn't even know how to come up with a better excuse when she lies. She's truly disgusting. I think she did it on purpose. Maybe she's having a great time with those men somewhere else right now. Tiffany Ching had often made such sarcastic remarks before, but Robert had never thought anything was wrong. But at this moment, he found it incredibly grating. That was his biological sister, connected by blood, whom he had sworn to cherish twice as much from the moment she was found. How could he allow an adopted daughter to constantly humiliate her without doing anything? What was he doing? He looked up at Tiffany Chang's face, full of disgust, and suddenly found her expression utterly unfamiliar. Was this still the kind and timid sister in his heart, who didn't even dare speak loudly? A surge of unspoken disgust and anger swept over him. The doting look of the past was gone from Robert's face, replaced by icy coldness in his eyes. Sarah is my biological sister, your sister. Since she returned to the Ching family, she hasn't said a single bad word about you. She is kind, sensible, motivated, and studious, more outstanding than anyone. If I hear you slander her one more word, get out of the Ching family. The more he spoke, the more he broke down. Yes, his sister was so good. How could he bear to assault and humiliate her, destroy her body, and steal the career she had worked so hard for? He remembered how, before he left, Sarah was sprawled on the ground like a dog, desperately pulling at his pant leg with helpless, desperate eyes. He instinctively looked down at his pant leg and only then noticed several bright red bloody fingerprints still there. How could there be so much blood? He had only been concerned with bringing the unharmed Tiffany Ching to the hospital and hadn't realized at all that Sarah's finger bones were broken, yet she was enduring intense pain and frantically apologizing and begging him for help. Robert didn't dare imagine how desperate Sarah must have been at that moment, if those men weren't someone she had hired. The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. He couldn't stay there any longer and rushed back to the hotel like a madman. Watching his back as he rushed away, ignoring their calls, Tiffany Ching turned and linked arms with Jessica, complaining, "Jessica, how could Robert talk to me like that? Sister clearly brought those men to humiliate me. I'm the victim. No, that's not right. Sarah wouldn't do that. Sarah isn't that kind of person." Jessica's face was ashen. She quickly pulled Tiffany Chang's hand away. "Tiffany, I'm going to go see. You go home first." Watching the two leave one after another, Tiffany Ching clenched her hands, her eyes full of resentment and malice. At the hotel, Robert stood at the private room door, looking at the striking red bloodstain on the ground, stretching from beside the overturned wheelchair all the way to the window. His face was ashen, and his entire body wouldn't stop trembling. Below the window, the sound of the surging waves crashing against the rocks was like an invisible hand, strangling him, making it hard to breathe. The manager, trembling, handed Robert the things Sarah had left behind. "Mr. Ching, these are the things Miss Ching left before she jumped into the sea." Robert took them blankly and asked, "Where are those men?" "We've already reported it to the police and they're under control." Speaking of that, the manager's voice was heavy. "We just got word from the police station. That group is a bunch of repeat offenders specializing in this. Just a week ago, they committed another crime, assaulting and humiliating a girl in an alley on the east side and almost killing her. It's strange, though. That group was caught after committing a crime a week ago, but we heard they were released a couple of days ago after the victim's family signed a letter of understanding. I don't know what that girl's family was thinking, forgiving these beasts after she suffered such a terrible ordeal. If it were my daughter, I'd give up my life to make sure they all paid the price." The manager said a lot, but Robert only heard a few words. A week ago, an alley on the east side. It was like he had been struck on the head. Something exploded in his mind. Jessica, who had hurried over, also heard this and froze in place, her face deathly pale. Honey, it's wrong. All of it is wrong. They are the very ones who assaulted and humiliated Sarah. How could Sarah possibly have hired them? We misunderstood Sarah. We pushed Sarah to her death. Jessica covered her face, crying heartbreakingly. Remembering the cruel words she had said to Sarah before leaving, she wished she could kill herself in regret. Even though she knew Sarah best, she had, for the sake of Tiffany Ching, plunged the sharpest knife mercilessly into Sarah's heart without hesitation. The one who changed wasn't Sarah, but Jessica, who was blind in her eyes and heart. Robert shook his head, these few sentences piercing his heart. He completely broke down. No, it can't be. Sarah isn't dead. She said I was her only family, she would never leave me. My sister is the kindest. She couldn't bear to see me sad. I don't believe it. I'm going to find her. Robert ran out like a madman, the unread medical report floating from his hand. Jessica wiped away her tears and picked it up with a trembling hand. When she saw that the person who had donated a kidney to her years ago was Sarah, she froze completely. The manager was about to speak but was startled by Jessica's eyes, which were so red they looked like they were weeping blood. He watched as she lost all strength, collapsed to her knees on the ground, and wept heartbrokenly. As night fell, the rescue team only brought back a bloody shoe and a voice recorder, expressing their regret and deep apologies. After they left, Robert played the voice recorder. There were several recordings inside. There was his conversation with Jessica at the ER door, and their discussion about having reporters expose Sarah's promiscuity. The last segment was the truth about how Tiffany Ching had framed Sarah in the private room that day. The hand clutching the voice recorder bulged with veins. It turned out Sarah had known all along. All those bloody wounds were inflicted by the very brother she trusted the most, one stab at a time. That helplessness and sorrow beneath her silence weren't because she had become sensible, but because her heart had completely turned to stone. How much pain his sister must have been in. Boundless pain and regret almost drowned him. At some point, Jessica walked up to him with the medical report and spoke sadly. During the mansion fire back then, the one who saved you wasn't Tiffany Ching, but Sarah. She had 2 ribs broken by the falling beam and gritted her teeth to carry you out. Because she was unconscious, Tiffany Ching took credit for it. Including my kidney, that was also given to me by Sarah. Robert, we are both the culprits who caused Sarah's death. We are sorry for Sarah. We deserve to die. Just then, news from his assistant's investigation came in on his phone. Over the years, every single instance of Tiffany Ching bullying Sarah was laid out bloodily before him. She had investigated and found out that Sarah was the real Miss Ching even earlier than Robert. To prevent Sarah from returning to the Ching family, she had bullied Sarah at school, beaten her, accused her of stealing, and cheating on exams. She even bribed gangsters to take many private photos of Sarah and post them online. After her plan failed and Sarah returned to He Ching family, she tormented Sarah with even greater intensity, venomous snakes appearing inexplicably on the bed, hallucinogenic drugs in her milk, a hand suddenly pushing her onto the road. Even the dozen criminals who had assaulted and humiliated Sarah had received large transfers from Tiffany Ching, specifically to make sure Sarah's life was worse than death. Afterward, she had gone to the police station under the guise of being family and signed the letter of understanding. For so many years, as her brother, he had only believed Tiffany Ching's lies and slander, labeling Sarah as selfish and malicious, and naturally favoring Tiffany Ching. The moment Sarah showed any emotion, she would suffer endless emotional abuse and family discipline. The grievances and pain Sarah had swallowed over the years finally came back like a delayed boomerang, piercing him the moment he saw the truth, causing him unbearable agony. Robert rubbed his face. When he looked up again, his eyes were filled with terrifying darkness. I know the mistakes I've made are unforgivable. I will atone for Sarah properly. Before that, some accounts must be settled. Just as he finished speaking, the door was pushed open. Tiffany Ching walked in, carrying shopping bags from luxury stores and humming a tune. Completely unaware that anything was wrong, she walked over smiling and acted spoiled. Robert, I bought dozens of clothes today, and I don't have enough money in my bank account. Could you transfer me another 10 million? I saw a set of jewelry I like and need to pay the deposit tomorrow. 10 million. Sarah had been back in the Ching family for so many years, and all her expenses combined didn't even amount to the price of a single one of Tiffany Chang's clothes. But Sarah had never complained. And he actually thought he was being fair to his 2 sisters. Robert suddenly smiled. Okay, go back to your room first. Robert will transfer it to you in a bit. Watching Tiffany Ching go upstairs, row. Bert made a phone call to his assistant, then printed out a divorce agreement for Jessica. I'm sorry. I couldn't even give you a proper wedding. But I'm even more sorry for Sarah. From today on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. Whatever I do from now on has nothing to do with you. Take the money and live well. Only then did Jessica realize that in his divorce agreement, he had given half of his assets to her, and the other half was used to establish a foundation in Sarah's name. She felt uneasy and wanted to say something, but Robert had his bodyguards forcefully escort her to a new mansion. The next day, news of the Ching family's adopted daughter being assaulted and humiliated to death by over a dozen homeless men made headlines. When the police arrived at the scene, Tiffany Ching's eyes were bulging, and her body was covered in blood, clearly in a state of death with eyes wide open. Especially her lower body, her intestines were ruptured and rotten, a gruesome sight. Robert acted as if nothing had happened, directly donating Tiffany Ching's body to a medical institution for experiments. Over the next week, he personally selected a burial site for Sarah, organized a funeral, numbly like a machine that had lost its soul. It wasn't until he went to cancel Sarah's official identity that he discovered her identity information had already been removed from the system long ago. He tugged at the staff member in disbelief. I personally handled my sister's funeral arrangements. How could her identity information have been removed so long ago? The staff member frowned and explained, there are only two possibilities. Either she participated in a classified government project, or she had a terminal illness and no closest family members to help with her final arrangements, which is why she chose to cancel her official identity in advance. He had clearly seen Sarah's medical report, there was no terminal illness. Then there was only one possibility. Thinking that Sarah might still be alive, the dignified CEO cried and laughed like a madman in the records office. At that moment, Sarah was in a foreign country overseas. The professor was sympathetic to Sarah and helped her find the world's top doctors. With Sarah's diligent rehabilitation training, her injured hands and feet gradually recovered. At the same time, Sarah didn't neglect her drug research. Finally, one day a year later, Sarah successfully developed a new drug that treated a disease for which there was currently no effective medicine on the market. The day the experimental results were published, Sarah's new identity caused a stir in the medical community. Facing everyone's blessings and praise, Sarah cried tears of joy. Sarah had thought she would never meet Robert again in this lifetime. But on the night the celebration banquet ended, Sarah still encountered him, hunched over and much older. He nervously rubbed his hands, his gaze towards Sarah humble and cautious. The streetlight shone on him, and a few strands of silver hair left Sarah with an indescribable feeling. Sarah, you're alive. That's really wonderful. In the 6 months since you left, I often thought about how you would pull my hand, full of reliance, and sweetly call me Robert when you were first found. At that time, I thought to myself, even if it costs me my life, I will absolutely not let anyone hurt my sister. But in the end, the one who hurt her the most is me, a sinner. I'm sorry. Robert owes you this apology. Sarah's expression was indifferent. Are you finished? Robert showed a bitter smile. I know the mistakes I've made are unforgivable, and I don't dare hope for your forgiveness. Robert just thought, just in case you softened, just in case you might be willing to accept Robert's atonement for the sake of Mom and Dad. Robert just doesn't want to lose you. Robert only has you left. Sarah's eyes were full of sarcasm. What can you atone for? Can you earn back time so I wasn't assaulted and humiliated? So the new drug I worked so hard for wasn't given by you to Tiffany Ching? Or so that when I was most helpless and desperate, you didn't relentlessly throw me back into a living hell? And don't mention Mom and Dad. If Mom and Dad were still alive, they would only find it repulsive. Robert lowered his head, looking completely dejected. I understand. Robert will go and properly atone. I won't appear before you again. You must be well. Before leaving, he looked at Sarah with difficulty. Sarah, Jessica's kidney disease has relapsed. It's very serious, and she doesn't have much time left. Her dying wish is just to see you one last time and tell you she's sorry. Could you? No. Sarah interrupted him. One kidney bought off 12 years of friendship. I don't need her apology, and I will never forgive her. Robert was silent for a long time, finally nodding sadly before turning and leaving. Sarah knew he had the phone on. She also heard faint, suppressed sobs coming from the phone hidden in his pocket. 12 years of youth. What couldn't be returned wasn't just time, but also the person in those memories who had taken the wrong path. A week later, Sarah received news. Robert went to the police station and turned himself in. He not only confessed to the fact that he had hired goons for assault and humiliation, but also exposed Tiffany Chang's evil deeds during her life. He was sentenced to 20 years. The slut-shaming that had weighed Sarah down was finally cleared. Not long after, Sarah received an email. The familiar ID was from Jessica, and the title was Last Message. Sarah didn't open it, she deleted it immediately. She blocked the number along with it. Then, taking the large sum of money that had suddenly appeared in her bank account, she invested it all into the pharmaceutical industry, hoping that one day, more people could be free from illness and enjoy happiness. Dark clouds eventually disperse. Here the heart faces the sun will be